Hey, what's going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent, and today we're going to be talking about a game called Remnant from the Ashes. This is a pre-impressions, me judging the book by its cover, and just looking at the trailers and kind of reacting to it raw. I've already watched 3 trailers, I saw some boss footage, some streams, I kind of a general idea of what this game should be and play out like. And I kind of want to elucidate that for you. Really, I feel I need to illuminate it because how I found this game. A quick little story. I was actually looking for survival games, new upcoming survival games, both PvE, cooperative, and player versus player, which those lists are coming out, and one is probably already out. You've probably already seen them. Anyways, I was looking for new games, right? I typed in survival games, and Remnant from the Ashes pulled up. And from that, I was like, whoa, I never heard of this game. This looks really cool. However, I was disappointed to find out that it was not actually a survival game. See, it's actually touted right on this website multiple times. You will read it is a survival shooter, and I would debate that it's really not. Tragically so, maybe that's a whole nother rant video in itself, that, games, especially horror games, call themselves survival horror. I would debate now that the survival genre is well established and there's literal survival mechanics. Just because you don't want to die doesn't mean it's survival. Just because it's a horror-ish game doesn't. Is Diablo a survival game? I don't know. Remnant from the Ashes it doesn't seem quite survival to me. Now, what really is Remnant? I think that it is more of a looter shooter, even though it does have melee focus and its gunplay is very strange, which we'll talk more about that. But it's more of a looter shooter, definitely a dungeon diving style game, and certainly it is an action RPG. This is a game that will be kind of more in line with people who you like games like Diablo, you maybe like games like Destiny, and definitely you like games like Darksouls. But maybe you want to play a game like Darksouls, but it's a little bit more cooperative, a little bit more focused on online, that social gameplay, and maybe something like Destiny, but different, not quite like a watered down Warframe, etc. And for me, I do like games like Warframe. I do like right proper looter shooters. Borderlands is pretty cool too, but frankly, Warframe does the power fantasy the best. And Borderlands is its own mix of right proper RPG, the storytelling, and all the guns. It really does what it does great, right? So you got Warframe, you got Borderlands, and then you have all these other games kind of trying to fight for it, or Destiny's winning just from brute force of advertisement, right? But you had Anthem trying to hit, very, very missed though, trying to hit, and it really failed. And I think we're really kind of looking at a lot of these a lot of weird games are coming up. I think there was a game called like Breach or something that is shutting down, but Remnant from the Ashes is seemingly another kind of sincere attempt to, be the third spike on the trident here, to spearhead the entire genre of looter shooter going forward. Remnant from the Ashes, I think, will be that B game. Like you're gonna buy your AAA looter shooters, you're gonna buy your AAA shooters. It's still gonna be Borderlands 3, probably Warframe, still always gonna be king. And Destiny's, man, they won't stop advertising it. And honestly, I am excited for Destiny 3 now that Bungie is sole, creator there. But this game is gonna tide us over, maybe. So I know I haven't really talked too much about it because I think you guys have eyeballs too. Anything I would say would really be from my impressions of the trailers. But, it is a post-apocalyptic hellscape, and it's actually from the creators, Gunfire Games. They apparently made Darksiders 3 and Darksiders 2, so if you're getting a little bit of vibage from that, that's going to be why. I don't know if it's like a lot of reused assets or something, but it is published by Perfect World, which might be some warning signs to some people. We'll see how this turns out. But I've played a lot of fun games from Perfect World. How they turned out in the end, I don't know, but this is a games as a service. It is a game that's about a long-winded grind. I don't think it's going to be free to play, if I'm not mistaken. I heard that it wasn't. Maybe I should do more research when I do these things. Regardless, I think it's going to focus on an expansion setup and Perfect World. I don't know how well they support certain games. We'll see where this one goes. But yeah, no, this is going to be a looter shooter that kind of hybridizes a couple of different abilities and some maybe gadgets-ish. It's very kind of low fantasy in terms of like the player abilities, which Dark Souls gets pretty high fantasy, gets pretty ridiculous. But you know how you start out Dark Souls, and maybe even Bloodborne, it starts out kind of you don't have too much in your arsenal. It's a little bit more down to earth. I think the entire scope of Remnant might kind of sit there, where even games like Destiny, which is generally much slower than Warframe, still gets pretty amped up. So Remnant is not going in the direction of power fantasy, which most action RPG go in. Path of Exile, Diablo, Warframe, etc. Those games kind of do what they do great, right? Borderlands, those games, they all do their power fantasy in specific colors and flavors. Some things hit or miss here and there, but Remnant seems like it's like, okay, we're gonna go in the opposite direction, and we're gonna make it kind of clunky and chunky and slower and more brooding and dark and more horror focused, which is probably where they're putting like that survival aspect into the actual marketing. And I think that it could be fun, it could be different, but it could also be really boring. Just looking at the gameplay, the gunplay looks like you're gonna miss a lot. It's gonna be very arcade, like you're gonna be perfect aim, and the creatures are gonna be totally in realistic gun distance, for the bullets to realistically hit at all. And then I've seen gameplay where the player is just constantly missing, despite the enemies being essentially almost melee distance. Like you could really like leap and attack with your sword, and that's the distance that some bullets are missing, even though he's actually aiming at the creature. So it seems like gunplay and everything is going to be very arcade. And I'm also worried that they chose guns because it's easy. Just hit scan guns. You can have a variety of different guns with different stats, but it's not as ridiculous or as fantastic as having lots of different abilities like Path of Exile that you can even mutate and transform, or Warframe, and what you can do in that game. I just feel like this game is very, very tame when it comes to the player controls. But then again, it is also focused on teamwork, team orientation. So this game could be kind of a fun, almost like beat 'em up. I want to say it's a beat 'em up, but it's a shoot 'em up, kind of, but it's not really. It's somewhere in between third person, over the shoulder, shooter, melee thing. What's really fantastic is going to be the monsters that you fight. So while your tool set is a little bit more tame, it's still going to really focus on teamwork and stat building. You got your paper doll, and who knows how expansive that's going to be. I'm assuming it's actually going to be rather simplistic and linear-ish, but hopefully we have some funnish classes to kind of mix and meld archetypes of gameplay. But if that is the case, if the gameplay is rather, I wouldn't say low fantasy for the player, it is kind of cool to see these monsters being extremely high fantasy. Like there's some very magical monsters. For games like Monster Hunter or Darksouls, even to a great extent, you have a lot of creatures that are bestial. They don't always have like the MMO style raids, lots of little circles, AoEs that you have to avoid, and magical abilities. Not too many, at least, even in Dark Souls. So Remnant seems like it's kind of going in that direction. Like the kind of the bosses you would probably fight, maybe Path of Exile or Diablo or something like that. We're going to have that sort of experience, but over the shoulder mechanics, and really, really focused on team work as well. Because if you were just a one-man wrecking crew like you can be in a lot of these other games, these action RPG that are power fantasies, it wouldn't be quite as horrifying, and it wouldn't really incentivize teamwork like it could potentially inside of Remnant. So it's really a double-edged sword that's going to be a huge balancing act, I think. And in the end, why do people play games like this? Historically, it's been for the power fantasy, so going in the opposite direction is a huge gamble, but it's one that I'm going to try to take and get a taste of here. So yeah, if you guys want to know a little bit about the world setting, or really it's worlds, that's kind of the big gimmick here, is that there's different realms that you're going to be jumping in and out of, procedural generated worlds, one of them happens to be Earth, but there are different realms, so maybe a little bit Mortal Kombat-y. And there's different factions inside of these, and you just jump in, hub town, then you jump in, boom, portal with your friends. It is a 3-player dungeon diver, you and 2 other people, and you go and do the do. Okay, so reading off the website, it says, a remnant of mankind. The world has been thrown into chaos by an ancient evil from another dimension. Sounds intense, a little bit doomy. Humanity is struggling to survive, but they possess the technology to open portals to other realms and alternate realities. They must travel through these portals to uncover the mystery of where the evil came from, scavenge resources to stay alive, and fight back to carve out a foothold for mankind to rebuild. Yeah, righteous. I mean, you guys can see the trailer footage for yourself, and with my thoughts and feelings, my word that I've already sent at you, you kind of get a glimpse of what this game is. So, not much else to say. It's still a pre-impression. It really is just me talking about the trailers and the website. I will just kind of in closing thoughts, what I got to say about what the potential of this game. I think it's got a lot of potential, but I am very skeptical, actually. Normally, I do videos on games that I'm really, really hyped for, really excited about the premise, and I am excited about a very co-op-y, Souls-likey, looter-shooter thingy that, it's all weird. It's weird. I like weird stuff, and I think generally it is kind of original, but I'm just worried that overall, the gunplay seems a little bit weak in a lot of the trailers, and what if the customization is really piss poor, and generally they kind of really stick with the low fantasy. Like again, I said, Dark Souls, you start out kind of lowish, kind of low-born. You don't start out with too many abilities, but then later on you get like homing soul masses and giant energy swords and ridiculous flipping through the air attacks, and it gets really ridiculous. It gets really out there, which is really fun. And in Bloodborne as well, I mean, with its raw mechanics, this game being slower paced, switching to guns instead of insane magic spells, and focusing on teamwork, I'm afraid too much is reliant on the enemies and the map design and really stuff that's very, very difficult and challenging to create and make very fun and engaging over and over and over and over again. See, the reason why roguelites and games like Dark Souls is fun is because, well, one, the level design is generally really good or procedural. This game does have procedural. The bosses are generally fantastic, but what really gets it is in RPGs, it's going to be the fact that you can create and customize your character, your build styles, you know, Diablo, Path of Exile, Warframe, all those games. Even though a lot of those games have really dumb monsters, especially Warframe, they have the customization. They just throw like meat walls at you, and you have to like figure out, you know, your own way to play through that. This game, it's kind of going a little bit opposite, but in the end, players will figure out the patterns of bosses. It's not that complicated. Plus, it's co-op. There's going to be a lot of ways to brute force this game. I just think that in terms of gameplay as an RPG, as an action RPG, I don't think the action is intertwined too well with the RPG. I gotta see more of the RPG. I gotta see how different guns can be customized or how different builds can be built, and I gotta see how different playstyles can come about. Because, you know, once again, to talk about different games, Path of Exile to Warframe, you can play in some radically different ways with those games. Even Path of Exile, which is just, you know, isometric, click to move, you can have so many different crazy builds in that game. I think that's why people play looter shooters, is to get different loot and shoot in different ways with that loot. And this is, I don't know, it's kind of taking some elements that I don't know if they're quite cohesive, and to make them work together, it's just going to be very difficult. It's going to be a work of art to actually create it. And, you know, thinking, you know, promising and hyping up a game that is obviously, it is such a challenge to design. And, you know, it's in a genre that's a game as a service. It needs to do it well over and over and over again, keep us intertwined in the gameplay because it's online, it's co-op. Oh man, we're definitely gonna, not even like when this game launches, we're gonna have to see how this turns out, like, you know, months later. We're gonna have to revisit it just to make sure, because it could just go all down, you know, it could just have 20 bosses and that's it. And no expansions, nothing. So this game could go very awry. I will fully admit that here, but I will say pre-impressions, it definitely looks quality. It is trying to do something unique, being a Souls-like looter shooter, and I think that despite the fact that its website is very repetitive and doesn't say too much, and also has a little bit of misinformation, I would not call this a survival shooter. I think that overall it looks like they're putting a good foot forward for the looter shooter genre, which, I don't know. You know, I was hyped for Anthem. You know, I was hyped for a lot of games. There was like some other game called Breach that, I don't know. There's some other games out there that, I don't know. There's some cool stuff, sure, and it's cool to be hyped and get excited, but we also still have to be realistic. So that's what this video is about. It's not just me glorifying anything, it's me literally judging a book by its cover. So that's my thoughts, that's my feelings. I guess that's my review of the preview there of, yeah, Remnant. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. My name is Skylent, and I'll see you again next time.